Does it make men have more respect for women? Does it make men have more respect for themselves? Does it make men feel that they have a chance in the dating market?
What do you think of the Fresh and Fit podcast?
What's up, dude? How's it going, man? So
I'm doing absolutely well. Thank you.
It's good to hear, bro. So guys, I actually found this guy on the internet just casually, and I actually really enjoyed your content because one funny thing, I'm going to be real honest, like I was kind of I was a little bit taken aback when I saw some of your pics with the chicks. I thought that was hilarious. But then when I looked into your content, it was very authentic, and very focused on an individual, focusing on himself, and I guess becoming his most authentic self, rather than approaching dating with the intentions that that is stereotypical of males, a decade ago, back when they had things such as, what was it called again? It's off the top of my head. Yeah, like PUA.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to kind of get to know you a little bit, what you do, what your purpose is. So could you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Nell. So it's an honor to be on your show as well. Thank you for reaching out to me. I'm truly grateful for that. So I was born and raised in Los Angeles, California. I come from an Iranian descent, so I'm Persian. And I grew up pretty insecure. I feel like a lot of guys grow up. I had the three top insecurities that were running my life were seeking validation, seeking approval, and people pleasing. So when you grow up in a Middle Eastern family, there's a lot of pressure that's applied on you to become a specific kind of person, to be the specific type of person in the eyes of your family, your parents. I would say that I was somewhat of a charming guy, growing up. I wasn't a complete antisocial, isolated, introverted type of man, but I was very insecure though. I had no identity of who I was. Again, I was always trying to make sure that I was appeasing to society and I was a specific way to certain people. So those were the struggles that would also apply in my dating life now. When I was in middle school, I was absolutely terrified of asking a girl to go to a dance. I remember that. It was this is the generation. I grew up in the 90s, so we used AIM, so AOL Instant Messenger, to message the girls.
I remember that.
Yes. Yeah. So that was our generation. And then going into high school, I did meet one guy who gave me a lot of street smarts because he was someone in my neighborhood. And we had this deal where I would drive him because I was 16 at the time. So I would drive him. He was only 15, but he had the access to go to all these high school parties. So I was not one of those super popular kids, but I wasn't also a super loser guy either. I was kind of in the middle. So then I went to my first high school party and I'm oh shit, this is where all the hot girls are at. But when I would be there, I wasn't sure how to fit in and how to talk to them and everything. But I had relatively good, relative success for high school. Going into college, I studied business, and I would also have a decent understanding of how to talk to girls. Still got rejected a lot. Still wasn't taken seriously. Would get flaked on and all these kind of things. When I graduated from college, that's when I started getting more of my life in order. Started hitting the gym more. Joined Toastmasters International, which is a public speaking community that helps you, again, with public speaking, with leadership, how to be a good host. That started to segue into what I do now as a dating coach. So I love public speaking. I love helping guys out. But at that time, I was focusing more as a public speaker with mindset, achieving goals. And I would also go to my high school and teach these high school kids how to, again, goal setting, affirmations, positive mindset, these kind of things. That carried on for a good majority of my life. But during this time, from let's say age 23 to about 26, 27, roughly, I was very immersed in the pickup community through this one dating coach who's from Australia, Dan Bacon. Very good dating coach. Gave me a lot of game on just how to understand women better. Still felt like I was in need of more help in dating. So then I got into my master's program in business. I finished that in 2 years. And then while that was happening, I was also, just investing into more knowledge. Then I got into the red pill community from age like 28 to about age roughly 30. I started looking into the red pill community. That served me, I would say, some benefit, but I realized, in my opinion, I know maybe some of your viewers might think the red pill community is really good. Maybe you yourself think it's a very beneficial thing. I felt like the red pill community got me more angry, made me more bitter as a person. It didn't make me hate women, but it definitely made me more judgmental towards women. So I got out of the red pill community altogether. And then I found other groups of mentors that really helped me shape more of the man that I am today. So my coaching that I do now is like I've won full time in the dating coaching. I used to work for my parents for like 10 years in their business. Now I moved to the state of Arizona. I live in Arizona. I travel a lot too. So, I'm always in Latin America or I'm in Asia or whatever. And the kind of coaching that I do for the guys now, it's all about practicing not being judgmental of yourself, getting rid of trauma and insecurities that's been holding you back. Then I start getting into how to create a more attractive vibe of who you are. And then I start talking about like seduction and, if guys want to know how to have a threesome or how to like be able to pick up a girl faster, things of that nature, I help with that a lot. But my premise is like helping guys tackle those 3 insecurities that's been holding me back now throughout my whole life, which is, again, seeking validation, seeking approval, and people pleasing. So presently I help with that. And I also run immersions where guys meet me in person in, say, Arizona or California. Those are the 2 states that I've been doing my immersions so far. And I plan to do them international as well, like one in Colombia, Puerto Rico's in the future as well. And it's been great, man. I fucking love dating coaching. I love helping guys out. And it's the most fulfilling thing to do a job like this where I don't have my own boss. I am my own boss, right? And I love it, man.
That's awesome, dude. I believe that seeking validation is definitely a soul for... not being someone's authentic self is definitely going to contribute against them when it comes to the dating field, especially since, you're forming yourself to be a person in order to obtain that validation. And in doing so, like, you're not being your genuine self. So who out there is going to be able to resonate with who you are as your genuine self and become, the partner that you want if you're not even showing that? So I think that definitely is probably a foundation.
Yeah, I talk about that so much now. Like, when I tell these guys, I'm like, when these guys are afraid, like we had a group coaching call at the time of this recording. We had a group coaching call about 2 days ago. And man, like these guys now, like a lot of times my clients will say, like this is a good example. I had a client who was telling me, hey, Cam, I'm still attached to my ex-girlfriend. Like I still think about her at times and she'll hit me up. And, I told her already, based on your advice, that I don't want to speak to you anymore. So I established my boundary, but she's not listening to my boundary. So I told him, like, you're not being truly authentic by allowing this disrespect to continue when you've established a boundary and she continues to violate that boundary. Not only are you leading her on and you're giving her this like dream that she's going to come back to you, that's not authentic of you. So you're getting your ego boosted right now because you have this chick who is validating you, but you're not validating yourself and appreciating yourself by following your boundary. So I was telling him that. So not only are you being fake to her, you're being fake to yourself, and you're also being fake. And I asked him, are you currently looking at somebody else, like dating somebody else? He said, yeah. I said, well, you're not even being real with her either. So you're not going 100% in yourself. You're not going 100% with the ex, nor are you going 100% with this other girl. So you're living a lie right now, and you're giving these girls lies. So, we can't do that in society. We got to be 100% authentic with ourselves.
Dude, I resonated that with wholeheartedly. I think especially in not being authentic with yourself and not being authentic with the other person, you're really digging yourself in a hole, because how much longer can you be living a lie and playing these games until the point where, like, being in an actual relationship and one that's working 100% requires that absolute trust, that full authentic self. If you're playing that relationship in a lie, like, how long can you consistently live that lie years over years over years to keep your relationship going? And I think a lot of guys don't realize that because they're scared of that abandonment.
Yeah, abandonment definitely now has something to do with it. A lot of times it's abandonment definitely has something to do with it. I would say also like guys are afraid of just something new. They're afraid of success, which is like a really strange fear because a lot of times like guys fear failure, but they also fear what it can look like on the other side. They're like, shit, well, I mean, if I get all this abundance, like what the hell am I supposed to do with it? Right? How am I supposed to handle it? So a lot of times guys will get, a lot of money or they will like develop their body at the gym. I mean, I've seen your pictures, but you're fucking ripped as shit. So like
Thanks,
there's
dude.
like a lot of guys, you're welcome. There's like a lot of like guys that get all this external uh things, but internally, I remember this one mentor of mine told me this. He said like, Cam, your external results are this high, but your internal has not caught up with the external. So you don't know what to do with all this like external validation that you're getting. So you got to like get yourself mentally like up there so it matches together. So then how you present yourself to the world on an external level matches with the internal. So it's not like the girl will look at you and say, "Oh wow, he has all this money and he's really cool at spending and doing all these things," but then internally he's super insecure and his money is what drives him to get me attracted to him. You get what I'm saying?
Yep. Hmm. Can you expand a little bit more on how a guy can improve that? I guess that self love or that internal validation.
Well, yeah, it's like internal like self-love, I would say. Like and you can validate yourself too. I would say for a guy to get to that level now, like I talk about this in my program. One of the courses I have is creating your foundation and program. So the first thing is like if you want to have a foundation program, you need a masculine self-identity. So if that's just truly getting to the root, Nile, of who you are, right? Like you have to know every fiber of your being, of conquering your mind and knowing exactly what your who your identity is or what your identity is, right? So understanding like boundaries, what are your boundaries? What are your standards? What are your roles and responsibilities for women? What are your gratitude statements? Like what's the code that you live by? What are your values? Once you have these things in writing or if you type it up, then you have a firm grasp of exactly who you are, as well as there's no more chaos that ensues in your mind. Because a lot of times when guys are making stupid mistakes and guys are absolutely clueless, it's because they don't know themselves. They haven't done the work to actually like really get to the root of who they are. So it involves like certain exercises. Once they do these exercises, then you'll know. And then it won't be like a surprise why they like there's an answer for everything once you know once you have your identity down. Like I have a client I spoke to yesterday who's like, Cam, how do you have an answer for everything? And I told him like, because I know who I am. That's it. Like I might not know what my future will entail exactly, but I know what I want to what intention I want to send to the world to get that future of what I'm looking for to be achieved. You get what I'm saying?
Hmm. I do. I believe that's hard though, and I think it's harder than we think because I believe it's like a muscle that you have to constantly exercise, right? And as you keep exercising it, it gets stronger and it gets stronger and stronger. But just like any muscle, if you stop practicing it, you can lose it. So I just think these things, really knowing who you are and writing that all down and, every day waking up with gratitude, these are all things that you have to practice on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm. You got to have affirmations too. Got to have affirmations. Language exposes how you think about yourself. I love listening to people and how they talk about themselves because that literally exploits them in a good or a bad way about literally how they feel about themselves. So if I, for example, one thing I always do with my clients as well is they create a who am I statement. The who am I is like, what are their views of themselves? What are their views of the world? What are their views on women? What are their traumas and what are their insecurities that they're battling currently? And when I see, for example, a guy in my community that says like, women have wronged me, women have done this to me. My parents have wronged me. My parents are, jerks or whatever. That tells me a lot about like the baggage that they carry. And the thing is, if a guy now really wants to conquer himself and be super good with women, he has to let go of baggage. And clarity is the name of the game. When you got clarity, you're set for life. I mean, now you just have to apply the knowledge. That's all it is. And then if you get the clarity now and you don't do shit about it, well, that's just ignorance then. Then you're like, I intentionally choose to be mediocre. I intentionally choose to not improve the quality of my life. Because a lot of times guys, they're making these mistakes now without even knowing it, because they're in their don't know what you don't know. Because there's you know what you know what you don't know, and you don't know what you don't know. So it's not necessarily your fault if you don't know what you don't know, but you got to take action every day to discover more about yourself. And that's how you conquer yourself, essentially.
Nice. Yeah, absolutely. I feel women are attracted the most to men that have experienced a lot of trauma, but ones that have overcome that trauma.
Are you asking me like if I think a lot of women are attracted to guys with trauma?
No, I'm saying that I believe that to be true. That women are attracted to a man who has experienced trauma and a man who experienced pain, but one that has overcome that pain. It's essentially building off of your experiences, building off of whatever pains that you've gone through, is just, I think, a further representation of who you are as someone who conquers obstacles and conquers goals.
I think women, yeah, there are definitely women out there now that are into guys that have had, everybody has had trauma, everybody. And I think the women, like, here's the thing, like, women live in chaos in general. Women are just chaotic by nature, and they're very insecure by nature too. I think like based on what you said, I want to like even extend it a little bit more. Like when a woman can be around a man that can mentally secure her and liberate her from her judgments of herself and the judgments she makes on society, that's a woman that can be in her femininity and be in her graceful self. Despite like, the rhetoric that's out there about how women in the West are a specific way and women overseas are a specific way, all women are women. Biologically, they're wired the exact same. But if a man has the ability to conquer himself, remove the emotional baggage and the trauma that he's had, right? When he meets that woman who is also seeking, she's not going to just blatantly out loud say it, but like through his demeanor, his energy, his vibe, and his security within himself, she will just start to feel that she can be secure and she doesn't have to worry about a man judging her for who she is. If that man is able to do that, he's able to have way more abundance with women and also have a quality relationship with a girl who is level-headed, not a train wreck, and she's also seeking to do as many feminine things for him.
Can you expound a little bit on your own experiences? Have you ever been heartbroken?
Oh, for sure. I would say in one of my relationships, I'll give you two stories. So in one of my relationships, I remember I made it like a mixtape CD. This is like back when Spotify and like YouTube music weren't like that big back then. So I remember I made a CD, like I love to find new music and compile music together and make a playlist out of it. So I remember I got a CD, I burned all these tracks of all the songs that my girlfriend and I at the time really enjoyed. And I remember this is like when I was living in LA. We were driving to San Diego to celebrate our 1-year anniversary.
Hell yeah.
I left the CD.
my place, bro.
Fucking CD. Yeah. I left the fucking CD, man, in the dashboard of the car, or the glove compartment, the glove compartment of the car. So we're driving and I was like, and then we got to the halfway point from, which is like Orange County between like LA and San Diego. So we stop off, you're from Cali, right?
Yeah, bro. I'm in LA and I lived in San Diego for 4 years before January.
Oh, okay,
so
cool.
I know
You know
exactly
what's
what you're talking about, yeah.
Okay, perfect. I was just also bringing up to like your viewers who maybe are not from California, but like we stopped off Culver Road in Orange County, right? So off Irvine pretty much. There's that gas station. It's like a Sunday, no, it's not a Sunday, so it's like a mobile or whatever. So we stop on that gas station and she goes to the bathroom. And I quickly get the CD and I get it prepared. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have it like, ready for her to like pull it out. So I tell her, hey, listen, like I got a CD for us. You want to like just pull it out and then put it in the car? And she's like, okay. So she pulls it out and she sees the CD and she just like totally ignores it. And she's like, I don't see it. I'm like, yeah, you do. It's right there. And she's like, no, I don't see it. And I literally just tell her, it's like, look, it's right there. She's like, oh, okay. And she sees it's our picture that I laminated on the CD-ROM. And she looks at it and she's like, okay. And I said, okay, do you want to put it in the car and like listen to it? She's like, nah, I'm good. And I'm like, this fucking bitch. I was like, this bitch. And then I told her, I'm like, okay, well, if you don't want to put it, I'm going to put it in. So she's like, okay. So we start playing the music and she's like, can we not listen to these songs? And I'm like, it's our fucking 1-year anniversary. You don't want to listen to this shit? She's like, no, not really. I'm like, well, sucks for you. I'm going to listen to it. But anyways, now like we're getting to the point where like, we're at the point where like the military bases, like on the freeway, like when you're driving to San Diego. I remember specifically at that point, she's just fucking arguing with me about some bullshit or whatever. And I was like, listen, we are turning this fucking car around and we're going back to LA because I grew up in the Valley. So I'm like, we're going straight back to LA. We're not going to San Diego and going to celebrate our anniversary. And she started crying. And of course I felt fucking bad. I was clueless. I was like, shit, like, oh my God, I'm such a bad boyfriend. And then I felt guilty. We turned around again and we go towards San Diego. Excuse me. We have a spot in Gaslamp District at this hotel. We get into the hotel and I have this like, all the roses and shit and fucking chocolate, all that fucking crap. So we have that whole thing set up. We have this whole thing set up and this bitch didn't deserve a single fucking any of these gifts that I did for her. So I was a hopeless romantic, man. So that was like, that whole experience was extremely stressful for me. And she tried to guilt trip me when she knew that I was going to break up with her when we went back to LA. She knew that I was going to break up with her. So I started telling her, we sat in the car and I'm like, listen, like I got to talk about like what happened. And she's like, starts to say, baby, do you want to put on that CD again? I was like, okay. So she puts on the CD and she's like, remember this song? Oh my God. She's trying to get me to not think about breaking up with her. And she literally started making me feel so fucking sad and so like guilty. And then I had pity sex with her. So we went upstairs to my house. I lived with my parents at the time. We go back to my room and I had pity sex with her. And I remember distinctly this look that my mom gave me when we came downstairs. And she looks at me. She's like, when the girl left, she's like, Cam, I've never seen you so fucking sad. Well, she didn't say fuck. She's like, Cam, I've never seen you so sad in your life. And I was like, Mom, I'm so freaking depressed right now from this situation. So that was one story. The second story would be like my ex-girlfriend was good in the beginning, but I definitely rushed the relationship. Also being clueless on how to lead a relationship. What happened was I remember like I was like, we were at a wedding in Mexico and I was like, I was boosting her, hyping her up in front of all my friends in Mexico about how my girl's into this kind of line of work and she's very, she does a lot of healing and shit like that. And then she just was like, she didn't really care that I did that. And I remember we went back to the Airbnb and she's like, stop hyping me up in front of all your friends. And I was like, what? What do you mean stop hyping me? She's like, yeah, like it's you make me nervous and you put me in the spotlight of attention. I don't like that. And I was like, okay, well, do you want me to also not breathe in front of you too? Like, what the fuck? Right. And she would like badger me about the stupidest things, like, breathing heavily in front of her and like, the way I chew and all that stuff. And I'm like, okay, you know what? You cannot stand being around me. That's what it is. And we broke off. And then from there, like she really stressed me the fuck out for like 3 weeks afterwards and begging me to go back to her. And it was so fucking annoying, dude. Like we literally dealt with like a very personal matter that just stressed both of us out. And dude, I was just heartbroken for the fact that like I really wanted to like take this girl into marriage. I wanted to have kids with her because I want to have a family, despite what guys will see on my Instagram that I have like multiple chicks dancing with me, multiple chicks taking pictures with me. Like, I still want to have a family and I want to have children. But that woman, when you set a goal of wanting something so bad and then it just doesn't happen like that. Like, man, I was really sad. But also, I'm very resilient too. So like I accept the reality that it just didn't work out, and shit, dude, like I was just living my life too, but I was also living in a sad time as well. So that's like when my heart was broken from two different situations with two different girls.
Can you expound a little bit on what you feel like might have gone on in, say, like the first relationship? So why did she not like want to hear that album, dude? Was
Yeah,
I don't even understand.
yeah. We had a lot of arguments, like a lot of arguments. Number one, my whole life, man, I've just been living. I was very insecure, man. Again, those three insecurities: the validation, acceptance, and people pleasing. Like, I supplicated a lot in relationships because I put the needs of the woman ahead of mine. Also, I had both feet in the relationship instead of 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Now, the guys that are going to be listening to this, watching this, like, I don't want them to think that you can't go 100% into your relationship. When you have 1 foot in, you're technically putting all your intention into the relationship. But the 1 foot out is to not tolerate disrespect, violation of your boundaries, violation of your standards, violation of like just a code that you live by. So if she cheats on you, a lot of guys will tolerate that. I don't fucking tolerate cheating. So if we have created a monogamous contract between one another, that's it. It's monogamous. I'm not going to cheat, and you better not cheat either.
Gotcha.
Right? So
not being a simp.
Exactly. So I was not 1 foot in, 1 foot out in any of my relationships. So it made me really just like, I accepted disrespect. I accepted low-key disrespect. When the girl just says something and she's being slick about it, that's like the low-key disrespect I talk about. So, man, that was just the shit that just like led up to it. And of course, like, why the fuck would she want to listen to my CD when she doesn't even have respect for me? You know what I mean?
Gotcha. So basically the biggest thing that you're seeing as a constant like comeback in your relationship is this allowance of the girl you're with to, in your eyes, disrespect you.
Yeah, those were the monogamous relationships I've had. Nowadays, it's just like I have a lot of liberation in who I am. I'm very comfortable in my skin now, and that's why I feel privileged to coach guys. I mean, if I was not at that level, I would not be coaching guys. I would just say, nope, I'm not ready yet. I got to work on my mental stability first. You know what I get into a lot, man? I love to give girls like the boyfriend treatment for the girls that actually deserve it, right? When I was in Colombia about a few weeks back from the time of this recording, I had just strings of nights where like I would stay with the same girl for like 5 nights or like 4 nights. And I give her the boyfriend treatment, but I don't tell her or I don't communicate to her that like, hey, I'm looking to be in a relationship with you. But I will caress her. I will take care of her. I will have fun on dates with her. I'll give it to her in the bedroom. Like I'll do everything what a boyfriend would normally do. But they know at the same time that I am seeing other women as well. So it's very obvious for them. And if it's not obvious for them, like they see the pictures, they see the stories, like they will just not even ask me like, hey, can you be committed to me or something? But they'll ask me, hey, are you ever interested to be in a serious relationship? I tell them like, look, I'm very open to that. Just haven't found the person yet. But anything can cultivate out of any connection with a girl that I have. It's always possible.
Yeah, 100%. That's the scary part too. Happens when you least expect it, right?
Yeah.
You're always just like in the place where I'm chilling, I'm not really feeling anything, I'm like doing my own shit, and then suddenly you catch feelings for someone you were like not even remotely interested in. It's the worst part.
Usually for me, I'm a lover boy type guy, right? But by the same token, I'm very logical about the situation too, and I want to make sure that I don't send the wrong signal to the girl. Like when I was in Colombia, there's this one girl that really, really, really likes me, like significantly likes me. And she's like telling me I'm your love and all that other stuff. And She's like, I really want you. You make me feel complete as a woman. There's no other guys that can do that. And I'm like, shit, that's very powerful to hear that from a girl. Like, I'd rather hear that kind of comment than a girl tells me like, I'm ready to get fucked, or I bought lingerie and I wanted to wear it in front of you. Like, that shit's cool. I'm not saying that's bad, but I'd rather hear a woman say like, you make me feel secure as a woman. You have liberated my mind. Like, I can just be a freaking girl and it's totally okay. But that same girl, like, she told me, I really, really like you, but I feel like, you still want to go fuck other girls. So I'm like, yeah, you're absolutely right. I do want to fuck other women, but you're here right now in front of me and there's no other girl here. That's a special thing. So you should be, let's both be grateful that we can enjoy this time together. And then that just, sets the mood again in a better direction. And then she just forgets about that whole fact that I'm sleeping with other girls, and we continue to date each other.
Mm-hmm. So I know we're talking about having sex with a lot of women right now, but I want to kind of like, I want to clarify to the audience, one of the content that I saw you create that I really resonated with was you expounding on, sorry man, it usually takes me like a couple hours for my brain to like start working in the morning.
You're good.
You were expounding on meaningful connections, especially in sex, and how that is necessary for men. You said stop having, I think, sex with meaningless connections. Can you go more on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So my whole thing is this, like, every woman that I would sleep with, even if it's just a one night stand, I'm setting an intention to really get to know the woman. Like, I really, really want to get to know her. I don't just like look at a girl, and she's drunk and I might be drinking and I'm looking at her like, oh, I'm just going to pork this chick and like, just bang her up and then I'm just going to like dip and, slip and dip. Right. For me, I actually I have a whole system that I teach guys in my community, which is the 5 pillars of compatibility. So it's humor, respect, responsiveness, attraction, and seduction. These things means that there's formality and structure behind how I live my life. So I'm not going to offer my dick to any woman unless she surpasses all these 5 things. Once I feel that all 5 pillars are satisfied and she is seeing me as a man that she wants to sleep with, she wants to get to know as well, then we can go have sex. Or, we go on a date and then have sex, whatever the situation is, however, like whatever the venue or the setting that we meet each other in. Right. Mm-hmm. So essentially, I feel like meaningless sex is a guy who's just valuing the woman based on her vagina instead of actually valuing her whole embodiment as a woman. Because I tell my guys in my community that there are before you can penetrate what's down there, the bottom half of the woman, you want to penetrate the mind first. That's the most important thing. Like, the value of a woman is up here. It's not how big her tits are. It's not how big her ass is, how thick her legs are, how juicy her lips look. It's more along the lines of like, how does she think up here? Because that is gonna be a telling sign about how you guys are gonna vibe together in the bedroom and outside the bedroom as well. Once you penetrated the mind, Niall, then you penetrate the soul. The soul is like when you can just hold a girl and you just look at her and you're just like, I see a woman that is like gone through so much, and she's been wronged by her ex-boyfriend, by some toxic guys. Her parents are just super judgmental of her. Her friends are super catty. I want to let this woman know by just looking into her eyes that like, I'm going to be her escape. I'm going to be her liberator. I'm her protector. Right? When you set that like tone and you set that energy to that girl, she's never felt something like that profound before. A lot of guys will like look at her and think just a pair of TNA, it's not anything more than that. And yes, I may see a woman for just one night and sleep with her and we may not see each other again, but like in that moment, I made her feel very unique and very special. through liberation, through like letting her know that your insecurities are not dictating your life. Allow me to show you that you can live your life in peace and happiness. So it could be like that's like truly a meaningful connection with a girl, regardless of if it's one time you've had sex with her and you don't see her again, or you do have sex with her and you see her more often. That's my definition of what's meaningful.
I think it's difficult for a lot of men to see that though until they've experienced sex enough. I guess everybody has at least a lot of people tend to have that one phase of the hoe phase, right? And once that's out of their system, I mean, I think that's where things start changing and they start realizing, wait, maybe it's not just sex that I want or that I need or that's suiting me. Maybe it's actually intimacy. Maybe it's a real connection. Maybe it's someone that I can see living life as a partner. Say that life was a business, this would be my business partner, right? It's kind of funny because I think you're kind of just telling guys what they need to know before they experience it and then have to find it out for themselves. Kind of the same way that you tell a kid when they're young that girls are going to like it when you're smart, or people are going to like it when you're smart, but nobody wants to be a nerd when they're young, right? Everyone just wants to be athletic. But then they find out later on, it's probably helpful.
Yeah, I think ultimately a lot of guys definitely need to get their reps in. They need to go out there and they need to talk to women. They actually need to insert themselves. They really need to insert themselves in conversations and really understand the power of a true connection. Because again, at the end of the day, like I think, look, a man and a woman, if they consent to having sex with each other, and they also consent to the intention that's being placed that, look, this is just a one night stand, or this is just going to be something short term, or it's going to be potentially long term. I think that's fine if they're both honest with each other, and that makes it meaningful. I just think like guys that value, this is where it becomes meaningless. When a guy just looks at a girl and says, I just want to fuck her, he has valued the woman to just literally her vagina. And that is not meaningful. This is a human being we're talking about that has feelings, emotions, has depth, has a history, has a past, has a story, has negative thoughts about herself, has positive thoughts about herself. Like this is like a human being, right? And like if you just look at a woman and just saying, okay, vagina, well, that's not meaningful. Same way a woman can look at a guy and think, oh, money, cars, status. That's not meaningful either. Like I don't like, as I get more money, accumulate more wealth in my life, I don't want some chick to just look at me as a fucking dollar or whatever,
right.
Like as money.
Resources.
Yeah. I don't, that's not, and that guy will feel fucking used. Unless he actually sets the intention of being a trick or being a simp. Well, in that case, like that's what he wanted. But a guy like me, the more wealth that I acquire, the nicer cars that I get, or the nicer clothes that I wear, or whatever the case may be, or the higher status I get, I want a woman to really look at me for who I am. Judge me by my character. Don't judge me by what I have.
Nice said. So what are the biggest issues that you tend to see people run into dating?
Damn. What are the biggest issues, man? Biggest issues, I would say lack of self-respect for themselves, like for guys, lack of self-respect, lack of following their actual word. So when they're like my client, who he said he made a boundary with the woman to not have her contact him again, and he still decided to keep talking to her after she kept reaching out to him. So it's a lack of following your word. So that's a lack of integrity for yourself. Lack of integrity, lack of respect, pedestalization of the woman absolutely is huge. It's rampant. It's like a freaking epidemic. Another one I would say is also living too much on the surface, on how they think about how they process their words, like the self-talk that they give themselves. It's so surface level and it's so mediocre and so basic that they don't live their life in being profound. So when you live your life on the surface now, you're not opening yourself to more abundance. Abundance is deep. Abundance is not just some like small little shit. Like if you want to have true abundance in your life, you got to humble yourself to more knowledge, to more depth. And when you have a deep connection with yourself, that means you have a deep understanding of opening yourself to more knowledge in the world. So that's what I would say are the biggest thing. I know that's not like what maybe commonly what dating coaches say, like, you know, guys getting flaked on and all that kind of stuff. But again, I like to think very deep. So if the guy solves these issues that I talk about, there's no more flaking, or the flaking is very little. There's no more disrespect. And if there is disrespect, the guy literally stops it immediately, and he will either correct it and the woman will listen. He will correct it. The woman doesn't listen, and he walks away.
If you want to support the podcast monetarily, then you can get or buy something from, say, Young LA or Huge Supplements, and use code Nile for a discount, 15% off of that, and that will also help fund the podcast. So that's why I wanted to speak with you, is because I align more with your views than I do, honestly, a lot of, say, like red pill dating coaches. Like some people that I like to follow, for example, is like Esther Perel. I don't know if you know of her, or Matthew Hussey.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people know about Matthew Hussey. And it all comes down to like you serving yourself as your whole, you figuring out who you are, you following your path, your passions in life, you having your own ambitions. You know, it literally comes down to taking care of yourself first and foremost, and then you find that partner, because how are you supposed to support the partner if you can't take care of yourself first, right? But there's a lot of guys and you know what simps do is they rely on another person, not themselves, for the happiness. And what does that do? You literally are no longer in control of your happiness, and thus no longer in control of your life. And if you can't be in control of your life, then that's a fucking mess, you know? So, sorry, I couldn't hear you for a second.
No, facts. You're good. No, you're good.
Yeah. So, no, I really do align with what you said there.
Thank you.
So speaking of, what do you think of the Fresh and Fit podcast?
I think, first of all, I have to give them an immense amount of credit for how much they've developed their podcast. I actually know Myron personally. I have not met him in person, but he was actually my fitness coach back in 2020. And I've seen him literally rise to the top. So I saw him when he was just like not making as much money. He was actually working at his government job. Not making as much money as he does now. But I saw him, I met him in 2020. And the funny thing about Myron is like, I remember he was in Richard Cooper's community, which is also a red pill coach. And I saw Myron like giving advice to guys on how to build a better dating profile on dating apps. So I asked Myron, I'm like, hey, on Facebook Messenger, I asked him like, hey man, can you help me with, my profile? It's I think it's trash. And he's like, yeah, you're right. It is trash. So he actually looked at the photos and he said, I said, hey man, is there any more help you can give me? Like, please, I need your help on a bio and all that stuff. He's like, bro, I'm not a dating coach. I can't help you. And I was like, okay, fine. Then later, in May of 2020, he comes out with this other red pill dating coach where they create their first course together, and Myron crushed it in sales with this guy. Like they made a lot of money. So from there, that gave him the confidence to quit his government job and go all into red pill dating. So then he started doing his podcast by himself, and then he met Walter, who's the fresh guy, and then boom. And I saw them like go from their podcast from something small to something huge, where now they have like 1 million subscribers, don't they?
Something huge, something crazy.
Yeah, something huge. They have like a crazy, absurd amount of subscribers now. So credit to them. Credit to them a lot. Personally, do I watch their show? Absolutely not. Do I run into their reels and run into their like YouTube shorts? Yes, I do. Do I watch them? The shorts? Yeah, I'll just see like what they're talking about. I personally do not agree with the tonality. I think there's definitely truths that they share. And I think a lot of the shorts, like I'll even like their videos because it like makes sense. And when Myron is checking a woman, I think, and it's like, it makes sense in my opinion, then I'll like the comment. I mean, I'll like the video. But overall, is it serving men, in my opinion? Is it serving men better? Does it make men less judgmental? Does it make men have more respect for women? Does it make men have more respect for themselves? Does it make men feel that they have a chance in the dating market? Absolutely not to all these things. I think a lot of times, like these guys that watch the red pill community stuff, like it's not just Fresh and Fit, it's like any red pill dating coach. They are more judgmental of themselves. They're more judgmental of women. They have these like unrealistic standards that they have to be 6'5", freaking 6-pack abs, like ginormous penis, and very nice car and all these other things. Like these guys, these red pill dating coaches in general. It's not just Fresh and Fit. It's like everybody. These guys all put guys in a situation where they're like, I'm fucked. I'm not 6 foot tall. I don't have a gigantic wong and all these other things that these guys say that you need to have. And then also the quality of the women that come onto the show, like they're like very unrealistic too. They're saying like, I need a man that's like, a millionaire and, this got this height and all that other nonsense that they say. Mm-hmm. I don't think they bring enough realistic girls on the show.
Yeah.
My life, the way I live my life now, like I don't deal with these kind of girls that come onto the Fresh and Fit podcast or any other red pill show. The girls that I meet are super liberated because, they allow me to liberate them. They're very respectful. They're very kind. They don't give me this, I don't need no man nonsense. Like I just don't deal with those girls. So for me, it's like, why would I want to watch a show, not just again, Fresh and Fit, it's like any red pill show that gives all these like so-called truths, right? That women are this way, women are that way. It's like, that's not my reality. I don't relate to you guys on this at all. So that's my opinion on, not just their show, but the whole red pill community and their shows that they have.
Gotcha. Cool. Can you expand a little bit on when you say liberate a woman? I know you talked about that quite a bit already, but it's an interesting phrase.
Yeah, absolutely. So liberation, man, is like, to me, let's talk about what it takes to liberate yourself, right? And then it will make more sense for how to liberate a woman. Like liberation for me, man, it's like, we've been enslaved mentally our whole lives by our trauma, the baggage we carry, our insecurities. And because we're living in through our traumas and living in our insecurities, we're not truly free mentally. We're still a slave to these insecurities that drive us to make certain decisions and how to talk to our parents, how to talk to our friends, and how to talk to women, or just society in general. When you're insecure, you're enslaved because these things are dictating how you should feel about yourself and all these things. But a man who's truly liberated, aka you cleared your baggage, the emotional baggage, you've addressed the trauma, and now you know how to like manage it, control it. Same with your insecurities. Now you can make the actual autonomous choice of deciding how you want to live your life. If you choose after addressing all these negative things that you want to live negative, well, now that's your choice. If you choose to be living in more abundance and happiness, well, that's your choice as well. And then you are going to start attracting more abundance in your life and more autonomy into your life. Autonomy is the opposite of enslavement. Autonomy can only be achieved through liberation. So when you have given yourself the permission to live more abundantly and live in your peace and happiness, you're living in a liberated state of mind. And because you're living in a liberated state of mind, you always have the freedom of choice to make any decision you want. Even if you get a situation that is beyond your control, you're still going to make the best choice on how to handle that situation. Once you're so secure in who you are, you're very liberated, you're very autonomous, you're very free in how you express yourself without the fear of judgment of other people and not judging yourself, that's when you can send it now to a woman. Because women are constantly scared of getting judged. They're constantly scared of being slut shamed. They're constantly scared of being asked like, what's your body count and all that other shit. So when a guy can just like talk to them and look at them as a human being, not just a piece of meat, that's when she will feel her most authentic self. When you get comments like, baby, you're the only guy that can make me feel like a woman who I can be comfortable and not be scared, and I feel like I can trust you, That is the most sexy thing in the world. In my opinion.
Yeah.
That shit
I
makes me
feel
just
like I could
get
trust
like
you.
a yeah, like that gives me a raging hard on when I see something like that. Like that just will make me feel like I'm doing my job as a man. One of the jobs as a man. The fact that she will say something like that to me. Does that explain in depth for liberation for you?
It does. It does.
Great. Awesome.
What should someone do if they can't get over their ex?
Number one, the first thing they have to understand is like being consistent, right? A masculine man, I'll first ask a guy like, how important is it for you to become a masculine man? Very important. Okay. If it's very important, do you know that is a masculine man consistent or inconsistent? He's going to say consistent and say, okay, if you want to be a masculine man, it's extremely important for you. And you know that consistency is what it requires. Do you think thinking about your ex and always calling her or texting her or thinking about her is being consistent? He's going to say, well, no, I don't think so. Okay. So then in that case, if the breakup has happened, whether you decide to break it off or she decided to break it off, it doesn't matter. You guys are broken up. Don't you need to be consistent to that contract now? The contract is broken up, right? It's funny because like you've broken up the contract of monogamy, but now you're in a contract of being in an ex relationship or being exes to one another. So going back on your word and trying to get back with a girl after she broke it off or you broke it off doesn't make any sense. You're going backwards in your growth. You're not going forward. So that's the first thing. It's like being consistent in your masculinity. Number two, I would tell the guy as well that like you're just thinking so low of yourself. You're not thinking high level thing. You're not having high level thoughts. High level thoughts is a man understanding, okay, this is done. We can close that chapter in my life. We can go now find another girl who's as compatible or even more compatible. A woman who can actually have a clean slate with, where she doesn't know about your past. She doesn't know about your ex. Like she just sees you for who you are and can judge your character based on how you present yourself. But if this guy, again, like he's constantly thinking about his ex, he is not thinking, again, big picture about what a better quality of a relationship he can have with a future girl. There's already a lot of baggage. There's a lot of stress when it comes to like the moment it's not the same again. Even when you're in the relationship and it's led to a breakup, means it wasn't just like one day you guys wake up and say, all right, let's just break it off with each other. No, it's like a pattern of disappointment, fights, stress, anxiety. And I asked the guy, like, do you want to go back to that? Or do you want to have peace and happiness? How important is your peace and happiness? And the guy will say it's important. Say, okay, do you think going back to a girl where like you guys have a history of all these negative things, do you think it would serve your peace and happiness? So a lot of the times, like, it depends on the context of like why the breakup happened too. So if the girl disrespected him throughout the whole relationship and he broke it off, but he's still thinking about her. He's like, oh, even though she disrespects me and called me a bitch and she yelled at me at the grocery store for getting the wrong milk, we still had good times together. I'm like, you can have good times with girls without all that nonsense too. You think she's the only one that can give you a good time? Mm-hmm. So a lot of times these guys are just like, they think like that's the end. Like that's, she's the one. She's the only thing that matters in this world. It's like, no, dude, you're the only thing that matters in this world. And you got to bring compatible people into your life that will that will help you achieve more happiness. Like you should still be happy with yourself, but like she can complement your happiness.
My audience actually has a few questions that I'd like to bring up if you're down. Sometimes they sometimes they have some really interesting ones, but some of these are pretty good too. All right, so first one, which I think is probably going to be the easiest because this is something that you kind of talk about consistently. How can I approach people I find attractive without the fear of being cringe or awkward?
Okay. Well, number one is your reality is the way you see it. If you believe that you're going to be cringe or awkward, you're going to be cringe and awkward. Very simple like that. The second thing I would say is don't look at the approach. This is why like when guys are like, yeah, I'm going to be a cold approach master or something like that. I mean, like, okay, cold approach, lukewarm approach, hot approach, whatever the fuck it is. Like, I don't fucking label it like that. I don't give a shit about any of those like titles. For me, I look at it as like, here's an opportunity to connect with a woman and to see, are we compatible?
Right.
That's more high level thinking right there. Yeah. I don't look at it as like
for whether or not this is going to serve you rather than just acquiring pussy.
Exactly. Like, I don't look at it as like, oh my God, it's a 3 o'clock, a woman at my 3 o'clock that I need to approach, and it's a cold approach, so I have to use these pickup lines, and I don't believe in any of that shit. Like, before the guy, if the guy wants to be more attractive, right? I will ask him, well, what makes you so attractive, and why should a woman give you her phone number and give you her Instagram? Why do you deserve that? So we will work on that response, whatever he gives me, right? For me, again, it's like, I'm looking for fun. I'm looking for compatibility. I'm looking for a woman who wants to be liberated by me. I'm looking for a woman that satisfies the 5 pillars of compatibility. That is more high level thinking. When you give yourself all that autonomy and power, Niall, to think like this, then it's not like, oh, what's the right thing I need to say to her? And what if she rejects me and all? And then I'll tell the guy as well, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much does this girl know you when you first approach her? The guy usually says like a 0 or a 1. I said, okay, there you go. It's a 0 or a 1. Does that mean she knows a lot of you? He's going to say no. Say, okay, perfect. In that case, then, why are you taking it personally if she only knows, like, say, 2% of you? She doesn't know the other 98% of you. So what's the point of getting pissed off or sad or depressed that she only knows 2% of you? She lost the privilege and the opportunity to get to know you. Do you feel like you're a good person? He's going to say yes. Say, okay, do you feel like you bring value to the world? Yes. Do you feel like you're going to be the kind of guy who lies and manipulates women and become deceitful to them? He's going to say no. Say, okay, well, then you're a good quality guy. She just doesn't see you as that kind of person that she wants to be around. So we just got to work on how you are calibrating yourself when you're around women. So that would be my answer to that question.
I do think it also takes some, I don't know why I always use this phrase. It's a bodybuilding phrase, fitness phrase, but time under tension. The first approach with any female or with any person in general, I think, I mean, maybe it's different for females whenever they approach males, because sometimes males have that different perspective when it comes to like what a female has to serve them, I guess, depending on what their intent is. But at least for, from the male's perspective, whenever you're approaching a female for the first time, they have no clue who you are, what you have to offer them, what your insides are, like your goals, your passions, whatever, anything, right? It's not like, when a guy sees a girl and she's attractive, he's interested, For a girl, she has a lot more to learn. So more often than not, I always see the second time around when they meet up, the energy is always so much better. And I think all that really matters is that, you literally put yourself forward and make that connection with the person, and see if it matches and if it serves you. And that's all you have to do, because the second time around, if it matches, they're going to be way more energetic. They're going to be way more connected with you. It's going to feel way more comfortable. And it's going to be like almost night and day from your first interaction, if the first interaction went well at all. Blue Coke asks, how do I talk to women without relying on copious amounts of drugs? Please help.
Okay. Pretty much what Niall and I have been talking about on this podcast is remember, Niall, we were talking about this a little bit earlier in the podcast about how when you're insecure, you're not actually truly authentic. You're not truly present to woman. So drugs and alcohol is a escape from reality, right? And I don't pass judgment on any guy that wants to do drugs and alcohol, but the thing is, if you're using drugs and alcohol as a coping mechanism to get a girl to be attracted to you, that's where I have an issue with it, right? So a lot of guys, for the guys that want to learn how to not use drugs and alcohol, just know that, okay, so let's just say you use drugs and alcohol to get her to connect with you and she even sleeps with you. What's the future now? Are you going to have to if you're doing cocaine, for example, every single time when you meet a girl, are you just going to do cocaine from every date and every day going forward now? Or because here's the thing, when a girl meets you, that's the standard now that you set. Whether you're nervous, whether you're confident, that's the standard. So if this guy, let's just say I don't know whatever drug he's doing, but let's just say he's doing cocaine, for example. If he meets this girl, here's him and here's her, right? And he meets her while he's fucking high on cocaine. All right, well now what's the next thing? the next date is going to be cocaine again. You have to be on cocaine in order to meet her or to meet her for a first date or for a second date or whatever, because that's the standard that she's seen you as. That's the mannerisms, the energy, everything about you is literally done upon the first interaction. So you got to match that energy. Now, I'm not endorsing anybody to keep doing drugs. Like, I prefer you guys not to do drugs when you meet women in general. So what I'm saying though is that if he puts himself in that situation where he's doing cocaine and he, meets her, and then she's going to see, okay, that energy has to be the same. Otherwise, now she's going to think that like you lied to her, or you were fake in some way. You're too much of a try hard. You're not the real you. That's the point. So it's better to set the standard from a sobriety level, exactly who you are. So then that way she expects the same thing every single time. And if you decide to do drugs with her, or you want to do drugs, at least like communicate to her like, hey, I'm going to go smoke some weed or whatever. And she'll know, okay, he's just smoking weed. And like, I know that he's like doing it. And that's, if he's high and behaves in a specific way that's different from his sobriety, that makes sense. So there's no surprises. There's no gimmicks or anything like that.
I think I'd say to this guy, you were talking about like keeping it consistent between your first experience, your sober experience, and then, every following experience afterwards. I think going off of something that you actually say consistently, drugs make you feel good about yourself. Drugs make you feel good, right? So in order for you to have that same consistent interaction with a female or with whoever you want to pursue, you've got to feel good about yourself. And I think this all goes back to those affirmations, that self-love, working on yourself behind the scenes when you're alone, so that when you are out there, you're more confident, you feel better. And in you feeling better, your interactions with someone's going to be better too. Your communication with someone is going to be better too. That's a good sober interaction. Then you don't need drugs or alcohol. But that's really hard. That's hard for a lot of people. And at the same time, certain guys are born different. Some guys are born with more anxiety than others. Some guys are born with more depression than others. So I think it will be harder for some people than others. But it all comes down to the same thing, is attacking that perception of yourself.
I like that. Thanks for sharing that. That was good.
What roles are men designed to assume when dating?
Okay, that's a good question. I would say, what are the roles? So number one, your role is to be a consistent man. That's definitely like one role. To be a leader, to be a provider, to be a protector, to be a liberator. That's probably like one of the most important ones too. And to be a coach to these women. Women need to be coached at all times.
It's such an interesting perspective.
Yeah, I don't think guys, for example, understand that like when they're in a relationship, they're like, oh, la-di-da-di-da, birds are chirping, butterflies are flapping everywhere, and like we're in love. Like there's nothing wrong with having these emotional, sentimental feelings, but women constantly need to be coached by, in certain moments they need to be checked. If they're doing something wrong and they're violating their boundaries or your boundaries or standards, say they're acting unladylike. For example, a good one is, say your girl is the type of woman that cusses. I believe it's unladylike for a woman to cuss like profusely. As a man, it's totally okay. We're men. We can do that. But a woman to profusely cuss, not because she's angry, not because like someone fucked her over on something, or her girlfriend's acting like a bitch or whatever. Like I'm talking about like literally she's just eating dinner with you and it's like a nice, beautiful dinner. And all of a sudden she's like, this place is fucking nice. I'll be like, what the hell? I don't know. Why are you talking like that? It's very unladylike. So that's like one version of like coaching a woman. But I think all those other things I shared with you are pretty firm roles of what a man needs to be to a woman, and a good lover too. You gotta be a good lover. That is unexcusable. Like you have to put it down in the bedroom. And it's not just like penetrating the girl. Like you got to penetrate the mind, the soul, like I talked about. You got to be good at foreplay. You got to be good at opening her sexual fantasies and kinks, letting her feel that she's not going to be judged. in the bedroom for whatever things she wants to do. You don't have to be open to everything she wants to do, but you just have to like just let her have the autonomy and the freedom to be a woman in the bedroom and outside the bedroom too.
Gotcha. How do you know if this person's the one?
How do you know? I mean, I don't really believe in the one. I think that's just such a strong, bold title to give to a woman. What I could say though is like you can have a very compatible woman, right? I feel like that is a more of a pragmatic way of looking into dating. When a woman is very compatible in all aspects of your life, she follows the 5 pillars of compatibility. She's very respectful. She is a great follower to your leadership. She has great self-talk, meaning like she's not like thinking to herself like, I look ugly, I'm a bitch, I hate the world or I hate my friends. And she's just like more of a positive force in your life. That's a super compatible woman. So for a guy to know, he needs to have, again, structure and formality on what creates a very compatible woman for him. That's how he knows whether the girl is the one, or in my words, very compatible.
I think it can be harder than not for most people for sure though, because it's that decision making. You know, a lot of people in this society is we tend to be I see that we tend to become more indecisive over who we want our partners to be, especially since social media has come about. I think in this day and age now, more than ever, 20 years ago, we didn't have the vast array of what we believe to be options that we can see literally just by opening our phone. And I think that's definitely causing a lot of issues when it comes down to knowing who your person is and I guess committing to that. Because I think that's another factor when it comes to the one is you actually have to mentally make that decision that this person is the one, right? You can have the feelings that drive you to that direction to feel like this person's the one, but feelings are fleeting, right? Feelings change.
Feelings are okay to have. It's totally fine to have now. But I think guys need to really operate from the logic. Like when you have structure and formality about everything about what's going on in front of you, and you're applying your identity to and complementing it with the emotions, then you know exactly, is she going towards the one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's important definitely to see whether or not you're compatible, intimacy, connection, sex, career and business, time restraints, like how much time do you want to spend together each week? How much time do you feel like you guys need to spend apart? Right? Some people even have separate beds. I actually personally kind of like that idea. That way I can like make the decision to like spend a night with her if I want to. And then I can also have a night where I'm like, just give me my own fucking bed.
So you sleep better. You sleep better when you're like alone in your bed. I've had girls like crash on my house, like crash on my apartment, crash on my Airbnb. And I'm just like, oh my God, my sleep is always shit. And I wake up the next day so freaking tired. I'm like, I'm cool with separate beds. I mean, if even it's in the same room and we have like 2 separate beds, I'm totally cool with that. Or she wants to have her own room. Like, I don't give a shit. Doesn't make me feel like, and then, the funny part is like, it's like, you can even make a fantasy out of this with the chick where you're just like, hey, like I'm going to be the guy that just comes over to your room and just uses you. And then I'm just going to go back to I'm going to like leave your house. And girls like that. If like literally girls like are totally okay with that kind of shit. If again, you tell them this is just like a fantasy, it's a kink or whatever. And she's going to be like, oh, I'm going to use you too, because you're just like that toxic guy that keeps coming over to fuck me. And then I'm just like left alone crying in my sleep because you keep leaving after we have sex. Like girls like are into that kind of shit. You just got to like, be the kind of guy that can pull that off.
There's a lot of kinks out there, bro.
Oh, lots of kinks.
There's a lot of kinks that can come out of that, out of 2 separate bedrooms. Yeah, what were we talking about though? Yeah, essentially knowing if this is a fit for you, and then I think the last step after you know that this is a fit is you guys just taking that step forward and always practicing that unconditional love for each other. Mm-hmm. I think waking up every single morning and seeing the other person as a new person every day is necessary in order to make the relationship continue to thrive. I think continuously expressing your love for this person as if you had just started dating every single day for the rest of your life is absolutely necessary. Taking that person on dates, consistently going to fun events, treating them to nice dinners. Whoever this person is that you're with, I think that's important because, I mean, otherwise, once it's all gone, then what's left, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most people just get used to whoever's in their life, and it just feels like baggage, and that's when it's over.
Yep.
So I think mentally, changing that perspective mentally every single day is probably the biggest thing for me.
Absolutely.
Okay, baby Esther asks how to know if she's a player too.
She's a player too.
Yeah, how to know if she's a player too.
I mean, why would that matter? That's the first question I would ask that person who asked that. And I'm not trying to sound like a dick right now by saying this. Like, does it really matter if she's a player? I mean, all women have slept with guys in the past. There's like, to find a virgin, like, good luck. All women have slept with guys in the past. There's most likely girls that are sleeping with other guys while you're sleeping with them. So I would just say focus on yourself with her, man. Don't worry about like, is she sleeping with other dudes? Is she talking to other dudes? If she is investing time with you and she's giving you gifts, giving you massages, giving you some amazing sex, and you know, you guys are hanging out and she makes you laugh and you guys have a wonderful connection, like who fucking cares if she's a player? As long as the most important thing is here's higher level thinking. Are my needs and desires being met with this girl? Does she follow my leadership? Does she follow the way I live my life? Is she not being a headache? That to me is more important than like, oh, is she a player? You know what I mean?
I think from this person's perspective, though, they're just scared of that abandonment, you know? Maybe this person's been cheated on before in the past or had some kind of experience like that. Yeah. I can see how that would be a concern when meeting someone for the first time and then say that you have some sort of significant interest.
I just think like that person, no, that's very valid. And I would understand why that person would potentially have maybe the fear of abandonment, but you can't live your life in fear. You cannot live your life in fear. You got to live your life in abundance and peace and happiness. As long as your needs and desires and wants are met, what nothing else matters. Your life is the only thing that matters. And then find compatible people in your life. So who cares about her past or if she's a player or not? Operate from a position of strength, not from fear. That's more high level thinking, in my opinion.
I can agree with that. I can. But I can also see how it can be difficult if you feel like she is not being authentic, or if you feel like in the dating period that maybe she's lying.
No, like if that's fair too. The only thing I would say is like if you're authentic yourself, you will see through the lies. If you are inauthentic, you're gonna want to have this like dance battle between two inauthentic people, you and the girl, then sure, go for it. But you're never gonna know the truth because you're not truthful to yourself. So because I lived my life so fucking truthfully and I only give a shit about things that relate to me and not to other men, I can always know when a girl's like when a girl's BSing me. There's no way a girl could BS me because like she knows that I'm so fucking real and raw in who I am. So she wouldn't even dare to try to BS me. Like she knows I can smell that shit from a mile away, you know? So I wouldn't worry about it.
Yeah. I do feel like if you are being truthful and you're creating a genuine connection with someone, then you'll be able to tell when it's not real. You'll be able to tell if someone is playing you. And at that point, I feel like really if you have enough value for yourself, then it's not going to be of interest to you anymore. And you can move on to like the next chapter or the next person that's probably going to serve you better. But I'm sure though that there are people out there that are maybe constantly paranoid or constantly anxious. And so it's harder for them to determine whether or not if someone is being truthful or not because they're just being paranoid, you know?
Yeah, they need clarity. That's the thing. Paranoia is a lack of information. Paranoia is also a lack of knowing it thyself. It's also a result of just like not having enough knowledge and wisdom of the way the world works and how they operate in this world. So if they just like seek coaching, right? Like, I mean, all these are questions that these people are asking are great questions. I don't know, like they're a part of your like Patreon community or they're part of like your YouTube channel or something. Like, what are they a part of?
I just asked these questions on like Instagram stories.
Oh, cool. Awesome. Shout out to those people that responded to you. These were really good questions and the interview was super solid, man. I really, really enjoyed this. Thank you for having me on this interview.
Yeah, of course, man. I appreciate you for being on. Where can people find you?
So I have 2 Instagram accounts that I operate through my business, but the best way for a guy to reach out to me and ask for my help, it's Coach Grand Cam. So just like the way my name is spelled on the screen. So it's Grand Cam together with Coach in the beginning. I have my brand account, which is the Grand Mail, but I personally respond to people a lot faster on Coach Grand Cam. My website is called thegrandmail.com. That's where guys can get more information about like the stuff I do. But I would say Instagram is like the best way for guys to reach out to me.
Cool. Awesome, dude. Thanks for being on this pod, by the way. And I do think I think Cam is like severely underrated. I think you definitely deserve a lot more social media exposure for sure, because you have a really good message.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Appreciate that. I hope to achieve that. And thanks again, Niall, for reaching out to me. Really appreciate the questions that were asked. Your demeanor on this podcast is dope. Like your vibe is dope as well. And I'd love to, do something like this again in the future with you as well.
Awesome. Thank you, bro. Thank you. So you guys, thanks again for listening to the podcast. Please support the podcast by rating us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and by subscribing to the YouTube. And then thanks guys for watching again. Thanks Cam for being on.
Thank you.
See you guys next time. Peace.
Peace.